I have an analogy that I hope is useful that comes from academics, but I'll tell you. I think it was in college, but I learned about Marilyn Frye, Frye, a Michigan State University professor, go Spartans, but she writes about oppression as a birdcage and that it's like made of wires, and that oppression, when you look at the individual instances, much like a bird in a cage might look at the wire and see, I can move around this. There's nothing that's stopping me. It's just a wire. I can move around every direction. But it's not the wire itself, it's the way they intersect that actually keep the bird in the cage.
You Don't Belong Here is the final project of my undergrad college career. It's the story of people sharing their experiences from their points of view, in their voices, about combating man-made social constructs. It's presented to you in 3 chapters. Mental health.
I've had experiences in my life where I've lost friends because they weren't willing to understand what I was going through.
Gender.
As women, we'd ever experience oppression, being in the music industry.
And race.
I get it a lot where people just come up to me and they say konnichiwa or ni hao or, whatever. And I'm like, thanks. Yeah, you too.
The idea is to pass the mic and listen to people's experiences firsthand. In presenting the opportunity to do so, I hope that this project encourages more conversations like these, more empathy, and ultimately a change in society's socially oppressive behaviors.
I think that people who have mental illness are actually are an oppressed group in our society. I think it's lumped together with ableism a lot of the time, but I think that folks who go through those things are really oppressed, and I think that people who inhabit other oppressed identities also really disproportionately experience mental illness because oppression is a really debilitating thing to have to deal with. It's really hard having a disorder that makes you feel bad about yourself because of the chemicals that are coursing through your brain, but then also being told that by people around you who don't understand what you're going through. And I think in my experience, the thing that was the most shocking to me and the most troubling to me was how much that stigma was also replicated within the mental health profession, who are the people that are supposed to be helping you and who are supposed to understand this the most. I remember kind of the worst experience that I had was a couple months after I started taking antidepressants, and I was having a terrible reaction to it. I was going out of my mind. I couldn't go to work. I actually almost lost my job because of it, which is another thing I thought of. If it had been a physical condition that I was going through, I think there would have been more sympathy there. I went to the emergency room, and the people there who were working there were just so dismissive and just being what are your symptoms? And I'm well, I have really bad anxiety and I want to kill myself. And he was just well, those are side effects of Prozac, so don't worry about it. I don't know, that was just really upsetting to me, and it's actually what made me decide to go into this field, because I think there's so many problems within it that are really not helpful to people who are dealing with these things.
I think especially being a teacher and being a professional and being responsible for shaping other people's children that are obviously their world, it's not okay to say that you have any kind of mental health issue, and it's not okay to ever be open with how that's affected you negatively, because it's almost oh, you're just some crazy woman that now I can't trust in this situation, where I think actually those experiences benefit me very much. Being someone with borderline personality disorder, the kinds of symptoms and experiences that go along with that, it's made actually the disorder highly criticized by the feminist community as being anti-female, that these bouts of hysteria and these mood swings and the lashing out toward people that are very close to you and stuff like that is a very anti-female, very misogynist thing to say. And so a lot of feminists are oh, that's not even a real thing, or this has been concocted to oppress women. But then if you actually know what it's like to have those things be very out of control, you're oh no, this is actually a very real problem for me that is not at odds with my politics. But it's not a feminine problem. It's not because of my uterus that this is happening. And I don't think that it necessarily needs to be like public, you wear it on a t-shirt and everyone's supposed to know about your problems. But I do just think that there's sort of a stigma around, you know, not just teachers, but also doctors, like anyone in sort of a professional caretaking role, that you're supposed to be like flawless in your own self-care and you're supposed to be like this saint figure, but you're not. You're just a regular person, and that's kind of what makes you most adept at doing this job.
A lot of times people who are trying to be helpful even have a lot of misconceptions about it, and I think that it's I mean, I've heard a lot of really well-intentioned people saying things like, oh, well, like, you just have to, like, be more positive, you just have to change your outlook, like, it's just a matter of, like, I have anxiety, too, which has been pretty debilitating in the past, and people will say, like, just, like, take a deep breath, that's what I do, and, like, that really helps, and I'm like, cool, I'm really glad that helps you, but that's not, like, I have, like, a medical condition, actually.
When I was in a band called Drago, it was a hardcore punk band. I was playing this, you know, obviously being in a hardcore band, it was mainly men, and really, like, they thought they were the toughest men and the punkiest men, and, like, nobody was more punk than them, and, you know, so it was really hard, but I remember one show, I brought my pedal board up on stage, and after I played, a guy came up to me who was in another band, and he's like, that's a really good pedal board, who put that together for you? And that was my first, like, real experience where I was just kind of like, really? Like, I don't even know how to respond to that. That's, you know, like, me? And, you know, oh, that's really great. And he was, like, congratulating me like I had done this amazing feat that nobody else can do but him or, you know, his guy friends. And that was, like, one of my first experiences with you know, where I knew where my place was, and I knew I was going to have to fight my way through in order to get taken seriously or whatever.
I was growing up, a lot of my uncles played guitar and bass, and I constantly wanted them to teach me, but they never would because they didn't even trust me to hold the guitar, right? Much less play it.
I was so afraid that I would be bad that I barely ever picked up an instrument because I didn't want to give them the option of, you know, denying me to play music because I'm not good or because I'm a girl or whatever I am, you know? So I stopped myself for so long.
All the punk bands that I used to go and see all these shows and, like, play these shows, it's, like, literally no more than 3 or 4 chords.
I mean, that's
They're doing nothing.
Right?
They're doing nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Me, and, you know, I'm back at home like, I gotta be different. I gotta be better. I gotta have something special to stand out.
Because you internalize that concept of, like, being being female, being associated with female qualities is less than.
The oppression's more of, like ignorance based. You know, the way people were quick to use trans people as the butt of a joke, for example. You know, the lady with a dick is the punchline of a joke.
Aren't you a little old to be wearing a dress like that?
Don't you have a little too much penis to be wearing a dress like that?
And it's just so ingrained in our society that people don't even take a minute to think about the human attached to that punchline. The biggest thing, I guess, this day and age is the bathroom battle about where trans people should be able to pee, which is ludicrous because, like, surprise, we've been peeing next to you this whole time. So it's the idea that somebody can legislate my body, which again isn't a foreign concept to me as somebody that was socialized female. That form of oppression too that one strikes deep because you don't feel like you're equal and deserving under the law because there's this group of people in some faraway place talking about your body as if it's nothing, and if it's less than, and if it's theirs to decide what to do with, when it's my body and my struggle and my existence in this space. And I don't want to have an existential crisis every time I want to have to pee. So
Fucking, can gender just be over? Like,
I know.
Can it just be
Gender just
over?
be
I'm
over,
so fucking
seriously.
over it. I'm bored. I'm literally bored with it.
I think that it's important that we redefine the concept of femininity and masculinity. And I think that in doing that, we can start dismantling those stereotypes of what it means to be a woman in this society, or what it means to be a man in this society, and just let people be in this society and do, I can really like to go to the gym and lift weights and see how much more I can lift because I like to do that, and that doesn't make me any more of a man in the way that, like, the only thing I listen to when I run is Beyonce. It doesn't make me any less of a man. So it's because that concept of being more or less of a social construct doesn't make any sense.
We are many things, all of us, and there's no one thing that defines you. But for many of us, we are forced to reconcile with that being the primary identity that people put on you. So that's when, things like race or your gender presentation, whether or not that's what's most important to you, you're going to have to learn how to contend with people's perceptions of you, and privilege is never having to think about it twice. That you get to define yourself as, oh, I'm just an artist, I'm a sailor, I'm a, versus how you look to other people. I was sort of brought up with a very assimilation mindset, right? That keep a low profile, fit in, and you can be, that your private life you should celebrate and, really be happy and proud to be Desi, Indian, South Asian, whatever. But in public, like, you have to be like chill about it. Like my name is Tanya and not Shumitra, or like Tuhina, as my mom would have loved to call me, So there's a reason for that. So literally from my birth, my name, my existence was meant to accommodate the white supremacist culture that we live in, And I think part of my project of creating music is to blow that up. I have this very difficult to say name, Saraswati, and I don't let people call me Sar or Sarah or whatever. I'm like, nope, you can say Saraswati, like you can say William. I know you can say Saraswati, like you got it in you, and a name like that, which is, she's a Hindu goddess, it unequivocally ties me to the subcontinent. So in my life, I've been trying to find this outlet for that, of this like rebellion against the accommodation for white supremacy. And I think that, fortunately, I have that expression of music. It's something I love. It's something I think I'm pretty good at or want to be good at. And a lot of people don't have that. So you can imagine the kind of psychic, emotional trauma that causes when you don't have a space to really get out of white supremacist culture and get out of that. It hurts, and I think that when you don't even realize what kind of damage it's doing to you is when it's really, difficult.
I have a brother currently in China who I'm trying to get over to the United States, and it's been a long and grueling process, and he's been really excited about it, but I think one of the scares is, well, if Trump's in power, like, is he going to be safe here? Is he going to be comfortable here? That's something that my mother and I really worry about a lot. Is he just going to want to go back right away? Is he going to have any opportunities while he's here? Is he going to be able to get a job here? Can he one day own a house here? I don't know if he even wants to come over anymore. I think that's kind of a big deal.
November 2016 hit and the reality came down. So I remember going to vote and being like, okay, yeah, like Hillary. And then going off to do my work and feeling very good about it. And just going about my day. But then that night I actually had planned a group dinner with my other Asian college friends. So we sat down at a hot pot restaurant in the Fenway area and we watched the election, all the votes coming in. And at first we were laughing and joking with each other and having a fun time, but as the numbers started rolling in, we started feeling that sense of dread. And it's a bunch of us minority, like Asian people, sitting together just staring in horror at the TV. And then I remember, like, before we left, we're all very somber. We're like, hey, whatever happens tomorrow, like, love you all, good night. So, and then I remember rolling over and like waking up in the morning, and it was just like the mood at work. It's just like, are you serious? And I think 2 people took off work because they called in sick, but everyone was like, it's okay, you can call in sick. And yeah, sorry. So.
I do think that in order to make a real societal and the seismic shift to equality that we need, we have to all actively work to dismantle our own privilege. which feels terrible. And it's not an easy elevator pitch to make, right? Like, hi, do you want to destroy the systems of oppression? Like, go ahead. Like, let's all work to like blow up our own comfortable lives.
For me, the most important step was recognizing my own privilege, which is so hard, you know, and I don't want to, you know, whine white tears and white guilt, but you don't know your privilege until somebody tells you sometimes, you know, because you do work hard, you know, I worked through school and I put myself through grad school and I worked hard to get where I am. And so to like somebody coming at me being like, well, it's privilege, like the initial reaction was like, hey, you know, hey, I worked hard. And so it took a while for me to kind of like break that down and like understand what privilege means. Like we're all playing a game of baseball, but for white guys, it's like getting dropped on second base with a chance to steal third, whereas like everybody else is like starting at home plate at bat. You know, like you're right, nobody's home yet. We all got to get home, but some people get to start at second base. And so I think when you start doing that, it at least like gives place for pause, and then you can take in other people's stories. Because I think when people are resisting the idea that they've had a privilege in this place, you just, because of that, like, but I worked hard reaction, you can't hear the struggles of people that, like, have had to work twice as hard to get half as far as you have.
I'm kind of pissed off because, you know, it's a weird moment in American history where I think a lot of people are waking up. And that is so heartening. And for many people, it's frustrating too. You're just like, where were you? You know, we needed you so badly, you know. And I'm one of those people that's waking up in a deeper way too. But it's hard. I think our directive now should be, how can we all listen more? You know, how can we all be more compassionate? And how can we use that compassion to move forward? You know, and you know, it's hard not to take things personally. But the personal is political, but don't take it personal. You know, like this is, I think, for everybody. And to get some thick skin, because some of us have had to have thick skin our whole lives.
Yeah. People need to be aware that everyone is extremely complex, even more complex than you'll ever know. And people need to be patient with each other and to actually genuinely find time to try to understand the other person. Because you never, like, I feel like I'm talking cliches. You never know, like, you never walked a day in their shoes, so you never know what their life is like. But it's extremely true because there are some aspects of that person that you'll never see, but they deal with internally.
What I think is helpful about this moment in American political history is that we're seeing there's many very different interpretations of America, you know? And it's not clear who's actually in the majority, you know, but we definitely know who has power. And I think that is what concerns me, but it is also a moment to hopefully pivot, support each other, and rebuild, you know? The urgency feels very strong. And also, if you have any art in you, let it out. It doesn't have to be perfect, just we need you.